Welcome back, everyone. Nigeria is being in discussions with the United States government for the purchase of Super Tucano aircraft. The U.S. had placed embargo on arms sales to Nigeria under the Leahy law. Recently, the U.S. made a U-turn and agreed to sell to the country, but with a deadline within which part payment must be made, otherwise the contract would lapse. That's the reason given by the presidency. Some lawmakers say it is an impeachable offense for the president to have authorized a payment without the National Assembly's approval. My panel tonight, Mr. Cletus Obun and Mr. Daniel Buala, both are in our Abuja studio. Many thanks, gentlemen. But I will say, and the question here is, what happens when sometimes you may not agree based on principles, but in a political situation like this, shouldn't the executive and the legislature tinker with a possible political move on this kind of situation, Mr. Obun?
Let me say this too. It is also failure of party leadership that can lead to this kind of open clash. On matters of this security level, especially when it has to do with internal security, especially domestic intelligence, gathering and combat, it is very shameful that you have a government at the national level that controls both arms of both levels of the parliament, and we have to go into the playground to display this level of rascality in both arms of government. Therefore, I want to say that this ought to rest squarely on the leadership of the party to manage this party politics of having to midwife. And that is why there is a legislative liaison of the president in the National Assembly before any of such action have been taken for appropriation. Don't forget that the law of appropriation requires that you can indeed expend monies 6 months, which they have now reversed to stop the 12th calendar month program, which is to say that if your program starts by December, you can't expend monies up to 6 months before the fresh appropriation. This law also is there. Our laws have a lot of problems that even reflect on our international relations. So for me, it was an arm of government versus another, which the political party ought to intervene and interfere. But that lack of interference, of course, led to the embargo on the leadership of party, even at the beginning of this tenure. And it is showing up again and again, and it's again manifesting in distorted forms as we go into the congresses. So clearly, I think it is party leadership that ought to play this role and not purely a governmental matter. I think we didn't do our job well as a party to have allowed this get into the public purview and bother Nigerians about internal security, which ought to be held in high secrecy, especially within the executive chambers.
Mr. Buala, weighing on this one, well, you had said that, legally speaking, the impeachable part of this story might not be practical. But the fact remains that these lawmakers look that they're resolute in what is said today and in the language and manner in which you've said it. Should they begin an impeachment process, what do you think could happen?
I will advise at this time with the crisis situation we have in the country that they do not delve into that arena. And let me digress to tell you a very troubling situation and an illustration of what happened, I think, in Pakistan or India, thereabout. I'll find that out. And anytime I get the chance, I'll bring it to the notice of Nigerians. The parliament in that country started creating a problem, and it assumed a monumental proportion that it was threatening the existence of that country. The president of that country shut down the parliament, and the matter was taken to their Supreme Court, and the court adopted the decision of the president under the doctrine of necessity. It's a fact that is in the public domain. The doctrine of necessity, as my brother said, luckily the other time we argued, I was on the other side of the doctrine of necessity. It is a circumvention of the Constitution for the purposes of providing the overall good of the people. The non-passage of the budget, the non-confirmation of the appointees, the attempt to reorder the sequence of election, and now the attempt to do the impeachment saga, all of these are more of political than legal, and it is because of the trouble. On the part of the presidency or the executive, the non-signing into law of so many bills by the National Assembly and the prosecution of members of the National Assembly. So the crisis situation exists and has been, and I doubt if it will stop unless, like my brother said, the parties sit down. I do not encourage the National Assembly to even conceive the idea not to talk of proceeding to do that, because by themselves, they have not been fair to Nigeria to pass the budget. 6 months down the line, the people of Nigeria are suffering because the budget has not been passed.